an option, it was really the leading option, and it would have been in its own way a game-changing pick. Steve Schmidt, Rick Davis, and the other McCain people knew McCain had to pick someone that would change the dynamic. The wrong track in the country was 90%. Bush, incredibly unpopular. They needed a pick that would really change things.
Okay, we're going to stop now, but we'll come back with
because
part two of
he was
this
under
video
consideration.
segment.
The conservatives told the campaign, including Karl Rove,
McCain's running mate, and yet here she was, totally unruffled, utterly unflustered, not even terribly excited. You seem very calm, not nervous, Steve Schmidt said. Palin nodded and replied, "It's God's plan."
Amen.
Sounds like the Sound of Music.
So tell us about not only that quote, but also
she's the one they were waiting for.
The shocking news that Joe Lieberman was actually the pick before Palin.
You know, Joe, people have reported in the past that Lieberman was on the list, that it was someone McCain was really drawn to, but we found in reporting for the book, much to our surprise, that this was not just an option, it was really the leading option, and it would have been in its own way a game-changing pick. Steve Schmidt, Rick Davis, and the other McCain people knew McCain had to pick someone that would change the dynamic. The wrong track in the country was 90%. Bush, incredibly unpopular. They needed a pick that would really change things. Lieberman would have done that, but it blew up because the word leaked out he was under consideration. The conservatives told the campaign, including Karl Rove, this thing will blow up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You can't get him through the convention. Even if you do, it'll destroy the party, rip it asunder.
Yet this blew up. And you have some parts of the book that talk about Sarah Palin's mental stability. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, she hit bottom in a lot of ways. And following the Katie Couric interview, in which she sort of melted down in the context of that. But, you know, just a couple days after she'd done the first of those interviews with Katie Couric, she went to Philadelphia to begin her debate prep. And over the course of the weekend before the vice presidential debate, she slipped into a very dark place. She was unresponsive. She was not engaging in her own prep. She commented to one McCain staffer in the wake of the Katie Couric interview that if she'd known how it was all going to be, she wouldn't have accepted the vice presidential running mate slot. And it prompted at one point Mark Wallace, a senior McCain aide who was in charge of her debate prep, to phone headquarters, call Steve Schmidt, call Rick Davis, and say that he was worried about her mental health and whether she was on the verge of some kind of an emotional or psychological breakdown that would then lead to a disaster at the vice presidential debate 5 days later.
Wow.
Catty Hay.
Hey guys, Catty here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In the course of your reporting, whose private persona comes across at most at odds with their public persona? Who surprised you most?
You mean besides Howard Dean?
Yeah.
He's going to love the bookmark.
He was terrific.
You know, we've got an excerpt from the book in New York Magazine this week about John and Elizabeth Edwards, focusing on them. And I would say probably Elizabeth Edwards would be my answer to that question. You know, she's become an iconic figure, really one of the most admired and famous cancer survivors in the country, someone who's had a lot of tragedy in her life. But as we found in reporting the book, a universal consensus view, even amongst people sympathetic to her within the Edwards orbit, that she was quite a different figure behind the scenes, someone who was intimidating and demanding and often abusive, not just to the staff, but to her husband, at times long before they were in national life and through the presidential campaign.
Talk about a specific story that you recount, and again, how it's nearly, and it certainly is uncomfortable to say this, but nearly unanimous among Edwards staffers that Elizabeth was next to impossible to deal with, and not somebody that many people around that orbit liked.
Well, she was, you know, I think part of the root of it was how demeaning she was towards her husband. You know, she would refer to him to other people as a hick. She would make fun of his family as rednecks. At one point, there's one little anecdote in the book where an advisor asks Edwards whether he's read a particular book, and Elizabeth bursts out laughing and says, "Oh, he doesn't read books. I'm the one who reads books." And that kind of treatment of her husband extended over into how she treated the staff around Edwards, where she was often abusive and condescending towards them. At one point, we recount a story where she's speaking on a conference call to his PAC and she flies into a rage when she learns that their personal health care hasn't been taken care of, and she says, until John and my health care is taken care of, no one at the PAC will have health care. And this PAC, the employees there included a lot of very poorly paid or unpaid employees. They were shocked by the callousness of the way that she was treating them on that subject.
Pat Buchanan.
Yeah, fellas, I want to go back to what Joe was asking about. That's that Clinton statement. He said he's apparently talking to Ted Kennedy, and he says, Ted, in effect, a few years ago, this guy, meaning Barack Obama, would have been getting us coffee. Now, obviously, Senator Kennedy is dead now, and he's can't confirm or deny anything about that. And this probably came from somebody that Teddy Kennedy talked to. Has former President Clinton, because this is a tremendously disparaging remark that reflects very badly on President Clinton, has President Clinton in any way indicated that that never happened to you fellas, or has he come back since the book's come out and this statement has been in the press?
Since the book's come out, as far as I know, he hasn't commented. Like everything else in the book, that statement is very well sourced. You know, he was increasingly frustrated. And it's kind of ironic in two levels. One is the Clintons, of course, have done so much to help African Americans in this country to make opportunities in politics and in life in general possible for African Americans. And the other thing, of course, is that Bill Clinton really wanted Ted Kennedy's endorsement. The reason he was working so hard, saying lots of different things, was because he wanted it so badly. But the very methods he used, including and culminating in this statement that he used, turned Ted Kennedy away. Kennedy found it almost amusing at times. Sometimes it angered him. But he would occasionally, to friends, in his Boston accent, imitate Bill Clinton, trying to court him. At one point, Bill Clinton ended a courtship phone call to Ted Kennedy trying to get the endorsement for Hillary by saying, I love you. And Kennedy found this kind of strange that Bill Clinton was sort of putting everything on the table to try to get that endorsement, because they knew how big it was. And of course, when Obama got the endorsement, the Clintons were right. It was huge.
And at the end, you know, at the end, when Kennedy eventually tells Bill Clinton that he's going to give Obama the endorsement, Clinton comes right out and says to him, let's just be clear about this. You're only endorsing him because he's black.
John, one of the themes you guys really focus on from the first pages of the book is the evolution of the relationship between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. A lot of people don't realize that Hillary Clinton, as you point out, was one of his earliest and most ardent supporters.
Another thing we didn't know, it's as closely as we follow politics before we started